Hello, everybody. Good evening. Good to have everybody available for today's session. I believe my audio is audible. If you can hear me, please notify that you can hear me. So I'm sure my audio is very much audible. Okay. Okay, let's just exercise some bit of patience to have some other people join us before we go much ahead into today's session of the AWS Cloud Studies series. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So for those that are here live, you can use the chat box to let us know you're here. So today's session will be on implementing techniques for as identity and access management, which is IAM at scale, where we want to look at how we can implement security in these aspects and the techniques for having a number of people, which are individuals, have their identity and access well managed, even at a large scale, both in small and large scale. And we have a wonderful speaker with us today, which will be coming up very much soon. But before I bring him, I want to be sure that everybody is here. I can see Adebiyi Adekunle saying, "This is my first time here. Welcome, Adebiyi Adekunle. We would like to know where everybody is streaming from. If you're streaming for the first time, let us know. If you're streaming, let us know your location from which you're also streaming from. It would be good to have you and know where we are streaming from today. Okay, you can now use the chat box to respond. Okay. Okay, so this series has been on for a couple of while, and every week we get to learn about different concepts in AWS since and as how it pertains to security. And today, as I said earlier, we'll be looking into implement techniques for identity and access management as IAM at scale. So we have Adebi, who this is first time streaming from Lagos, Nigeria. We have Ikeadiga Rene from Bagada, Lagos also. We have Onyedika also streaming. Okay, and we have who is this? Okay, so we have a number of people here on the channel, and we are good to go. Streaming from Lagos, streaming. I think we have a lot of Lagos people streaming here today. But then that's also still good to go and fine. Okay. Um, while we have every other person join in, so we can move into today's session. I want to be sure if you can hear me, can you just signify to be sure that you can hear me? Just to be sure that you can hear me, I want to introduce our guest for today. Okay. Oh, we have someone all the way from Kenya, Mombasa. Wow, welcome, Fatima Abdul. Wow, it's good to really have you all the way from Kenya. And it means we are really going very big. Wow, thank you so much. Okay, you can all hear me. Okay, for today's session, as I've said, the topic we are looking at is implementing um, techniques for identity and access management, that's IAM at scale. And we are privileged to have an AWS enthusiast in our midst today, a friend, a mentor, a senior colleague, and he's Abdullateef Ogundipe. Just a brief background about him: he's an engineer with Korean, a cloud engineer. He has completed a lot of projects both within AWS and outside of AWS, and we are privileged to learn from his wealth of knowledge today as regards identity and access management at scale. So let's give let's give reactions as we have Abdullateef Ogundipe take the stage to help us for today. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, dear moderator, and good evening, everyone. I trust you had a great day, and I'm glad you can join for this session. Please, can you send in emojis just to confirm you can hear me speak before I begin my presentation, please? Let me see, or any comments just to confirm if you can hear me. Okay. Okay. All right. So today, we will be talking on a very, very important topic, and it's actually exciting also. And it's something around, when it comes to AWS, you don't joke with anything that relates to security. And that's why I find this topic that has been created for today's study session very, very important. And the topic is implementing techniques for identity and access management IAM at scale. I'm very sure quite a number of us will have heard about IAM. So before I delve into technical details, I just want to let us relate. Why do we even need this? What are we talking about? IAM at scale. So let me put a scenario to you. I'm presenting to you certain example of a startup named Limitless Tech. You know, whenever you are starting something, you want to start at a small scale. And with respect to that, when you are beginning, maybe you have maybe a couples, maybe between 2 and 5 employees. You have different things that you are managing in terms of servers, and your customer base might not be that large. So in the early days, uh, you might not have a reason to think about how do I manage different a lot of employees. So at that instance, if you are in the AWS environment or any environment, any cloud environment, you could just create a user for each of your employee. You could give them access, write a policy for each of them that you just attach to the user. And that's what is showing in the diagram, in the picture beside, just to show how simple it could be if you are just starting up. Next slide. But when there's expansion, as you can see, can you see like a round table? Like that means you're having more employee. You are hiring more employers. You have several other services that you are offering to your customers. You've introduced new application. Your employees need to access different um different servers, different services, different database, and really writing a policy for each of them to let them know what they can access, to let them know the extent to which they can access can be very cumbersome. So for the scenario that we are trying to put ahead of ourselves, the limitless tech, when they started, they were just doing it as individual level. Do give this access, give this access. If they have a user, because of the limited user, they also find a way to send the access and create the access. But when they now have numerous customers, numerous employees, now they have what I termed as the I am headache, in which managing permissions individually for each employee is very cumbersome, and most importantly, it can cause a lot of error. So it's error prone, and there will be security. When there is error, then there will be security breaches. That means there is need for a solution to this, and that's how we arrive at how do we implement I am at stakes. So at scale. So I want to believe this little scenario that I've put forward will make you appreciate the importance of what we'll be talking about as we go on. So next slide. All right. So before I delve into the whole concept of I am scale, I want to try to explain the key terms, the important terms that we need to know so that we will know what are we actually talking about. The first thing, the full meaning for people, we are for the study session, we are considering people that are already as a professional, some are at the beginner level, and that's why I need to do this. So for the I am, the meaning of I am for people that are familiar is identity and access management. But there are two key things there. The first one is the identity management. You know, I is for identity. The identity management is the one that confirms the person that is trying to access our service, like knowing, okay, who are you? This is myself, maybe this is my name, this is my username, and which correlate with what is in the database based on what I registered with initially. So the identity management is when you can confirm that this is this person. But when you now talk about the access management, now you've confirmed that this is this person. Let's now look at what can this person access. This person does not have overall access to all our service, is not paying for all our service, or if it's an employee, the employee is not having access to all. Maybe the employee could be a entry person, he could not have access to some managerial level. So now to know what the person has access to and to which level. So that's the concept of access management. Now, bringing the two together, we now want to talk, okay, I am at scale. We want to look at how can we manage the identity and the access when it's involving a large in a large scale. So when it comes to identity, you are talking about a large complex user base or organization, and when we talk to access management, a large data resource and system. So this is the concept of the I am at scale that I will be talking to you about. I really hope you are following, and I want you to really pay attention because I have prepared this slide for you to take it gradually by gradually so that you can really gain a lot. So next slide. Okay, next slide. All right. So when we are talking about I am scale, there are key things that needed to be looked at. Number one, you know, I've established the foundation that we are looking at identity management and access management, which are two different things, and it's what I am is about. So the first thing is we are looking at user management. The user management is what something that relates with the identity. Then we are using that policy management. I'm trying to mention the key aspect of things that we need to take note. The second key aspect of things is policy management, which you will see some policy management that we'll discuss during the course of the lecture, which is relating to the access. So automation, which is at the midpoint. Anytime you want to deal with something at scale, you have to include automation, and this involves tools that can help with one, provisioning and deprovisioning users. So if you can have automated system that when you have users and you can just when you put in some necessary steps, they can be provisioned. If you are bringing them on board, or if you are taking them out of board, they can be deprovisioned. Similarly, as our access management, there are key steps that you will need to automate so that you can be able to manage that large user base or employee, which I am at scale is based on. It's very also important to look at the auditing and monitoring. Then lastly, security and compliance. So these are the key aspects of things that I am at scale talks about, which you will see as we go further, how different techniques, how different tools handle each of them. All right, next slide. All right, so we are getting into the business for today gradually. So speaking of techniques for implementing I am at scale, I need to be honest with you. When you are looking at the techniques, it's actually quite it's let me say it's not endless, but I will try to bring to you some very important ones that you could lay your hands on when you are in situation whereby you need to manage a large a large user base, or trying to uh, manage access control to services. And these are the 5 things that I have listed. In my other slide, I also show some other ones. But to talk comprehensively for understanding, I'll be looking at the role-based access control, the attribute-based access control, identity federation, continuous monitoring, and automation and orchestration. So we'll look deep in depth into what the role-based access control is, attribute-based access control is, and the identity federation. And that's what, so that we'll have a kind of um, uh, intuition about what these key things and how they really help you to implement IAM at scale. All right, next slide. Okay, so now please pay very attention to this, because this is very important. When you're talking about role-based access control, the role-based access control is one that restricts network access based on a person role within an organization. And this has become one of the main method of advanced access control. So one thing that you should take note of this role-based access control is it's something that relates to access management at scale. And let me try to build a kind of scenario in your mind. Let's assume that you have several let's say up to hundreds of employees in your organization, and they have their own accounts that they utilize. So as assume that you have to create a user for each person and start defining the policy, maybe let's say of each person. You want to know, okay, this person has to access this person has to access for every user. Can you see that's quite cumbersome? But because of the role-based access control, what you need to create is in form of create a role, which seems like a group. So looking at the, just to put a kind of enlightenment to what I'm trying to say, look at the diagram beside it. Can you see that under the role we have the administrator, we have the manager, and we have general. So looking at the way this is done is that you create, like, it sounds like group of a particular people that has different managerial control, but the name of the group is tagged as role. So take for instance, look at the administrator. From the word administrator, that means the administrator sounds like someone that will have the overall access to a lot of things, and you can see how the administrator is being matched to different service. Look at the manager. The manager has some restriction, but they still have quite a number of access to the services. While look at the general, let's just say like a low level employee, they also have their permission to access the some services in the organization. So because with the help of this role based access control, whenever you want to add a user to define what their role is in the organization, all you need to do is, just when the user has been created, just attach them to a role. It's a very straightforward process. And if there is need for a user to have more than one specific role, like the user B, as you can see, the user B has the role of a manager and the general due to what function that is expected to perform. What you just need is just a simple process to attach that user to the role, instead of defining specific policy to create the what the user B needs to access. So if you will agree with me, this role-based access control is very important in access management, to be able to control how users utilize services in the environment, either AWS environment, most importantly AWS environment, or any cloud platform. So one let me just try to bring some scope to what I've said in terms of terms that is being used when utilizing a role-based access tool, because whenever you try to utilize this in the uh in AWS, these are some role that some designation that you need to apply to be able to successfully carry it out. The first one is the management role scope, and this defines the what objects a role group is allowed to manage. You know, like I've mentioned this thing earlier, just to reiterate on it. Look at the administrator. The management role scope define that it can manage all the permissions available here based on, I'm just speaking with the diagram I have beside me, while the management role group is how you can add and remove member to a role. So you have users, you can add user A to role of administrator, you can add user B as the role of manager or general, and at the same time you can also define when there is need, you can remove a user B as from a manager that e doesn't need this role. I think a case example is that, let's take for example, normally user B is a general person, maybe a general member, and due to situation of things, the person in the managerial control to perform some tasks is unavoidably absent. The easy way to do these things is just for that temporary time the user need that access, give him the role of a manager. Then when it comes to the management role itself, is what define the specific um type of task that can be performed by a specific role group. So please don't confuse this with management role scope. This is the management role scope gives the limit, but management role define the specific tasks that can be performed. Similarly, management role assignment, this is how you can this when you have this role, this is when you assign a user to a particular group, to a particular role, let's say administrator role, a manager role, or the general. So at the end there, I was trying to say that by adding a user to a role group, the user can have access to all the roles in that group. But if they are removed or access become restricted, immediately user will have their access restricted from all those roles. So this is what role-based access control is about, and is a very useful concept when dealing with IAM at scale. So let's move forward to the next one. All right. So this is another interesting one which has a different application with respect to role-based access control. So this is the attribute access control. So, the reason why we have attribute access control is because a common limitation of role-based access control is that when you have people in certain group, there could still be some level which shows the services they can access and all. There could still be some level of access that you still want to restrict when they are in a role based access group. Let me put an example to have your understanding. Let's say you have the development team, you have a role group for the development team. So now you add two users to the development team, but when you get to the development team, is every user, there are still some sub teams in the development team, and you don't want every user to just have access to the services available in the development group. So you could utilize the attribute based access control, and this involves putting tags into both the service and both the user that you are creating. And just to define attribute based access control, it is an authorization model that evaluates attributes or characteristics rather than roles to determine access. So instead of saying that this person belongs to these roles, it checks the attributes of the person to see if this person can have access to this role. And if you check uh before I go to the diagram, which to put a kind of intuition around the ABAC, the major components of the attribute based access control is one, the subject, the resource, the action, and environment. So let's go to the diagram. You can see that the user, we have some specific attribute. Take for instance, let's say the user, one of the attributes could be the sub-organization that it is in, which could be as a form of tag. It could also be like the environment in which showing the account the person is using, and all other informations about the user's attribute. Maybe this is what this person is expected to do, is dependent on what service is working on. You could put a tag. Let's take for example the following policy in form of statement. It is saying that if the subject is in a communication job role, they should have read and edit access to media strategies for business units they represent. So let's try to break this down into the component of the attribute base. So the first one, which is the subject, is the job role. So the attributes that we can pick out from this when it talk to the subject, which we refer to as the job role, is communication job role. So can you see, we could have communication job role, we could have advertising, we could have marketing in an organization, even though maybe they are all in sales department, but we have communication, we have marketing, we have advertising. These are different subgroup. But this policy is this attribute based control statement is saying that for anyone in this communication job role should have read and edit access. That means the action is edit. Definitely we don't need to repeat read. If you can if you can read, if you can edit, definitely you'll be able to read what you're editing. So that's why the action is only edit. Then what resource do they want to access is the media strategy for the business unit they represent, and the business unit they represent is the marketing department. So even though the environment is missing here, but with these three different attributes, if you now look at the diagram, the authorization engine will utilize the attribute of the user. You know, with the user you will have used a tag to show that, oh, this person is in the communication department, this person is in the marketing department, so, or my marketing resource business unit area. When the authorization engine look at all these attributes, it will decide if the person have access to the document or not, and whatever access it is. So generally, attribute based access control is used by using the authorization model to evaluate attributes or characteristics, compared to the role based access control, which use the roles, the groups, so to say. So this is just like an explanation, and this is also very important when trying to manage people at scale. So instead of defining the different policy, which we say, okay, this also user needs to do this also user needs to access this, you just need from the starting of the setup, give tag to each of the user, and then let them, when they try, they too they know what they need to access. So if anyone is going out of their control, the attribute based access control will be able to limit them, and with that you are being able to implement identity and most this attribute based access control is also under access management. You know, I mentioned that the role based access control is under access management. So the first two things that we've talked about, you could say that is under access management at scale, whereby you limit the access to what said group of users in an organization can have and can have authority to do. So let's go ahead now. Let's this now coming into how to manage identity at scale. Don't forget, when I started, I tried to mention what is identity management, what is access management, and what we are talking about IAM at scale. In my last two slides, I've spoken about how to manage IAM at scale, and you could see how it relates with some key aspects that I mentioned earlier. So to get the concept of identity federation, I put up this series of question just to help your imagination to know what we are talking about. Let's leave the employee side. Let's assume that a you are giving some services to a set of customers, and don't forget limitless tech. What they started with is with few customers, and they could see how they can provision or get credential for each of them. But let's assume that the customers of limitless tech scaled up to millions, and they want to access um objects in the S3 bucket in a secure way. So just to help with your intuition, I posed these several questions and pushing out reasons why you should not try it. First, make S3 bucket public. You know, because we have millions, if you make S3 access S3 buckets public with the link to the S3 bucket, anyone that can access internet can be able to view it. So it's not something that you should do except if there's, you know, a compelling reason, which I don't think there should be, but there could be some other use, maybe some extreme reasons why you want to do that, but you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't, if you have certain sensitive documents, even if you want to give it to your user base, which is about millions of people, so far that there is still some other person that shouldn't see it, you shouldn't make the S3 bucket public. The other option that I'm posing to you is creating IAM credentials for each user. No, because this is very cumbersome. Imagine you are creating credentials for every person, millions. Even though there are some automated ways to do create credential, but irrespective of that, it's still not smart enough with the current solutions that we have. Another suggestion is, which could be tried but it's still not advisable, is creating an IAM service user for and embed its credentials in the app. So maybe the app they need to access, you just put the credentials so that anyone utilizing this can can view the S3 bucket. Similarly, this is not also a good option because of security breach. Anyone can go into your app and take the credentials and use it for something. So what other options do we have? And that's where identity federation comes in. So take a look at the figure that I have used here. So when you talk about identity federation, look at the users as the guy with the white shirt and a tie, and the people that makes up the identity federation is the identity provider and the service provider. So this thing should, if I'll just try to cite a scenario. You know, I'm very sure most of us we have a Google account, or any other account. So just to try to relate what identity federation is, you will see that there will be sometimes, maybe take for instance, personally, if I want to enter GitHub, I you can create an account with GitHub, but when I want to sign in, they will just sign in through Google. And when I click Google and like I verify my identity, I will have access to my Google account. Similarly, as some other services too. If I have um a Google option to be able to log in to the service, that means I just need one account which has trust with other service providers, and that's why you can see the trust relationship. So there are some service provider named as identity provider. They use the short form identity provider, IDPs. So they have trust with service provider. It could be with AWS or some other things. AWS also have their own form, which is the AWS SSO, single sign on, and which has been updated to the AWS identity IAM identity center. So when this trust has been established between the identity provider and the service provider, then any user will first authenticate with the identity provider, and when that has been verified, they will have access to the service provider. So instead of the service provider managing each user to authenticate each user to access what they want to utilize, they just create a trust relationship with the identity provider, which their own major function is to manage identity, to see how identity the identity that is trying to log into your account can be authenticated. So and that's what is called identity federation. Next slide. All right. So I have put up when we are talking about managing identity at scale, these are one of the key reasons why identity federation can be considered. The first one is the centralized identity management. So, like I've said in my last one, I've actually mentioned some key things about this in my last slide. So I'll just run through this to save our time. You will see centralized identity management. That means the identity provider is the one managing this, so they don't have to do something different. The AWS service provider does not need to do anything different to manage what the identities for their service. Similarly for scalability, which is majorly what we are talking about, I am at scale. So it helps to large organizations with numerous users and systems to manage scalability. Very importantly, security. With federation, security is being enhanced because this identity provider, they have several protocols which they use for their authentication, and before it's a user that is passing through that is being allowed to access the user uh, the services they intend to do. And when it comes to the user side too, they also benefit because they don't have the arduous experience of creating multiple accounts to use different services. So you can, if you have 10 services that you're using and you need to know different credentials for different services, you will see that identity federation, you can just use your one account to be able to utilize the um the service. Then also it helps with compliance of when enforcing authentication policy consis ten tly. So that's across domains. So that's like compliance for meeting all necessary compliance requirement. So please next slide, we are running out of time. Okay, so with what I've explained so far, this is just a picture to help you understand better. And what you are seeing at the left hand side where you see identity provider is an example that has been used in this diagram that I have related is one of the identity provider is also Okta. So when Okta verifies your authenticate who you are. So with the help of SAM 2.0 with respect to the AWS account. So when that has been confirmed that, oh, this person actually have access to this what they are trying to claim to have access to, then they will tag them with the necessary roles to perform the task based on whatever information they have communicated between the identity provider and the AWS account. So the difference here is that the identity provider is ensuring that the details, the credentials, the details that this person is claiming to have with our AWS account is true, and with that the person have access to the AWS accounts directly instead of AWS managing that themselves. So that's just that. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so I feel it's very important to also mention the AWS service that manage the this identity like I've talked about, and that's the AWS IAM Identity Center. So it is you at the end of the slide you see some links that I've shared which you can use to see how this works. But just to share some information about it, Identity Center helps you to securely create, connect your workforce identity and manage their access centrally across AWS accounts and application. So when it's with respect to the identity center, the major thing that they handle is one, workforce identities, that's with respect to identity management, multi-account permission, that's with respect to access management, knowing what what level this identity of this workforce have in the service platform. Similarly, with respect to application assignments. So please let's go ahead. You will see when you want to now in a practical situation, next slide, in a practical situation, you actually use the AWS organization with the identity center, and that's what this diagram is saying. If you can recall, I remember there was a study session that someone spoke about the usage of AWS organization and control tower to manage multiple accounts in the AWS environment. So when you have multiple accounts and you have different users, that take for instance, you could have the dev account, they have their limits, the development account, they have the services they want to access, the roles that is present, similarly as the production account. So AWS manage this. You could have some other level of organization. So what the identity does is the identity center is to confirm that, okay, this person coming in, let me confirm with his identity what, under which organization abi sub-organization does it falls under. So when he's able to confirm that through the AWS identity center, so it's giving the required privilege. So in a way, a case scenario, let's take for instance, you have a large organization with multiple departments. Like I've said in the diagram, you have the department, development department, production department. So I want to streamline and maintain the security and user management across these AWS accounts. So after setting up the AWS organization with the different accounts that are available, I configure the identity center to be able to synchronize the identities with the users that are under, like that are required to utilize the access that the development account has or the production account has. In this use case, we are talking just about two sub organization, like the organization unit under the organization that the AWS organization is managing. So when the IDP using the Active Directory is able to confirm this person, then they are able to have access to whichever role they are performing. And this really goes a long way in helping managing IAM at scale, in the sense that it helps them maintain the permission each person coming in they need to have to access what they need to do. All right, so I think I'm rounding up. So next slide. All right, so I try to mention the key to some of the services, and it's being combined together to be able to ensure, during my discussion, I mentioned AWS organization. I also mentioned AWS organization and AWS control tower seems similar, but AWS control tower still have some added advantage. So these are some other tools, and at the end of this slide, you see how some organization have really used these tools to implement IAM at scales. Next slide, please. All right. So just as a kind of summary to like a general tips for implementing IAM at scale, I have dropped these tips for each and every one. If some of the things that I've said might not be so clear, but this summarizes how different uh, things are being used to manage IAM as scarce. So the first one, I mentioned the AWS organization, where you can centrally manage several accounts. Then you know how you can now use AWS organization with identity center now to control maybe the identity authentication at scale. Similarly, the IAM roles, when you create IAM roles which can be attached to a particular group, and then users can be added to the group to perform those functions. So the policy conditions, when we talk about the policy conditions, what it means is talking about the a access attribute-based access control and role-based access control, which I have spoken about. Then the next slide, please. Let's quickly run through the next slide. All right, so resource tagging, this is also a key concept when you are talking about access, attribute-based access control, whereby you have to tag your resources, and that's what is referred to as the attribute, which the authorization engine will try to look into before granting access. So these are other key things that you just need to take note of: the service control policies, the conditional access control. So these are just key tips that you need to take mind, you need to take note of while trying to implement IAM at scale. So next slide, please. All right. So the reason why I added this, even though uh the scope of the lecture might not have included this, but anywhere you are trying to talk about IAM, it's very important to remind ourselves about the best practices, because this security is a very big deal when it comes to cloud environment, and that's why I have put up this picture to let you know these are the different things that you can implement. One thing that I want to verify, I want to emphasize on, and I noticed that our study group in our one of the programs that we had, which really emphasized on the zero trust policy, which is one of the latest policy AWS has encouraged people to implement, which is about not trusting anyone. Just ensure that each and everyone is checked to know what they need to access. Don't just assume. And most importantly, the giving least privilege is also very important when talking about IAM best practice. So these are other things that you should take note of when trying to implement IAM, either at small scale or at large scale. It's very important you take note of it. So next slide. So the couple of my next three slide is just to show you that what I've been saying is not just what is not just for theoretical concepts case. There have been big industry which have been utilizing these services to manage how their workforce access is being used at scale. And let's take for example of Xylem, which is kind of a water provider, but they are just trying to mention how they've used identity center to improve their workforce identity and access management. And these are the steps of what they did to achieve that. So these are the things that we can learn from to take note, and we could also see how we can utilize this whenever we are faced with situation of implementing IAM at scale. And I have also listed the services that was used. Next slide. Similarly, I have tried to show that of the behaviors industry, which used they scaled up to almost 100,000 employees using AWS organization and AWS identity service. So I mentioned to you about AWS and organization and AWS identity, I am Identity Center. So they are very, and these are some words from one of their the head of security, saying that using AWS organization was the right choice. By adding AWS Control Tower, we basically add a structure that delivers security by design. So they were able to manage the security, which IAM is based on, at a large scale using these services as mentioned above. So the last real world case example that I would like to mention is the Sophos. And similarly, they used AWS Identity Center to centralize AWS account management. And this is to tell you that we are not just all this AWS organization and AWS Identity Center actually used to manage the YAM at scale, and this is the feedback. And all these are actually available on the AWS website, so that you can also visit them. I have shared the link in this slide so that you can visit them and see how they have architected a solution for managing their IAM at scale with these services that I've mentioned. So I have shared the links to the resources. It has been a long talk. I really hope you have gained one or the other, and I hope in your various domain, or whenever you have interactions, or maybe you have duty to implement IAM at scale, at least you have an intuition on how to go about it and the needed things to know. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to receive your question in the little time remaining. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, sir. This has been a wonderful session. This has been an educating session. This has been an uh, I'm even lost of what to say, but this has been a great session. Thank you, sir. I believe everyone here has learned a number of things, and we really appreciate this section a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, this has been a great session indeed. Okay, so quickly, we don't have so much time, but we might want to just take our questions, which is the quiz sessions that we are supposed to have. And so we'll be taking the quiz session now. So everybody here, there is a link that will be dropped that we can all join in for the quiz. Please, let's do well to join in for the quiz session. Let's do well to join in for the quiz session. So we'll be taking the quiz session now just to test our knowledge and skill set on what we've learned so far. So let's join in for the quiz session. Okay, sir. Okay. Someone is saying the link should be clickable. A minute. Let me see. Okay. Have we seen the link? Okay, so that's the link. That is the link over there, so we can utilize the link. So let's join in while we wait for us to join in through the link. So I believe the link is clickable now. Yeah, yeah, very well. So we are waiting for you to join. We are waiting for you to join. We are waiting for you to join. So we have three. We are waiting for more players to join. So we won't wait forever. So we just have a very short time for us to join. So let's join in. Let's join in. Let's join in. Let's join in. Okay. So we are waiting for you to join. Okay. So we have more people in. Okay. I can see we are joining. Okay. So we'll be starting the quiz now, and we hope you win. So let's see the first question. Let's see the first question. So it says, what is unit testing in CI/CD pipelines? A type of testing that helps in catching bugs early, focus on testing individual units of application, a test that identifies problem that occurs when multiple components, a test that focuses on the inner working applications. Okay. This okay, no, this was not what was doing. Sorry, um that's wrong. Sorry about that, guys. So we a new quiz will be sent. Sorry about that. A new quiz will be sent. Yeah, the proper quiz will be sent. That was a mistake. Sorry. So let's still stay. A new quiz will be sent. Fear not. I know we listened carefully, and this is an evidence that we actually did listen. Okay. I think this is also an opportunity for some others who were unable to join earlier to join in. Um, just wait. A new quiz will be set up for you. Okay. So, while the quiz is being set up, um, okay, I think the quiz should be back. Let's just exercise a bit of patience. Okay, so a new link has been sent. So let's join in with that link. A new link has been sent. Let's join in with that link. Mr. David Aldo, greetings too. So let's join in with the new link that has been sent so we can have us joining for the game too. So we are waiting for you all to join. We are waiting. We are waiting. The link has been shared on the chat box. It's over here. It has been sent again, so please let's use it. The new link has just been sent. Let's check the chats. Let me also confirm. So people are joining already. So I believe we can see the new link now. So let's join. Let's join. Let's join. Let's join in. Let's join. Okay, so we are waiting for more people to join. I believe everybody should have seen it by now. Waiting. Okay. Please, can we join the quiz? We are starting already. So let's just follow through. Okay. Okay. So people have joined. Okay. So let's go. It says, what is the primary purpose of identity and access management at scale? Ensuring 100% data security, managing user identity and access, maximizing system performance, automating data. Let's see. Okay, timer is going. So let's see who gets that right. So the answer is managing user identity and access. Let's see who got it and who was the fastest. So L33. Okay, L33. Let's go. Okay, so we have more players, but L33 was the fastest and also correct. Okay, congratulations, L33. At least there's the first question, so don't lose hope. Okay, so other questions will be uploaded in some seconds for us to see. Get to see other questions. Okay, so let's go for the next question. It says, in IAM, what does quote identity federation refer to? Create new users identity for each system, establishing trust relationship between identity providers and services, managing password for all users, automating users provisioning. So let's see who gets that too and fast. It has been an awesome session today. Okay. So establishing trust relationship between identity providers and services. And we have the score board with Mayor leading um, on 97 points. Okay, so let's see and move on to the next question. It says attribute based access control, ABAC, is a static access control method that doesn't considered dynamic attributes? True or false or true? Let's see who gets that. And fast. Let's see how this goes. Okay, the clock is ticking. Okay, and we are almost done. So the answer to that is false. So the answer to it is false. So let's see. Edmond is rocking the longest streak. Let's see if Edmond ends with it. We still have two more questions to go. So let's get ready for next question. It says, what AWS service provides centralized identity and access management for AWS resources and application? Says AWS Cognito, AWS IAM, AWS Directory Service, AWS IAM Identity Center. Let's see who gets this also. We are running. It's getting more heated. Okay. Okay, so let's see the answer. The answer is AWS IAM Identity Center. And that's still correct. So Edmond is still leading. Edmond is still leading with 292 points. It's me you're behind. Wow. So let's see the fourth question out of five. Let's see how it goes. It says, what is the primary objective of role-based access control, RBAC in IAM, role-based access control? So the options are automating user provisioning, centralized identity management, defining roles and permission, ensuring fine-grained access control. Let's see who wins this and is also the fastest. Yeah, thumbs up. Okay, so it's almost time up. So let's see. The answer is defining roles and permission. Defining roles and permission. Five people got that correctly. And whoa, good to see. Edmond is leading with 389 points. Wow, that's good. So let's see the final question, which is the fifth question out of five. And it says, what is the primary purpose of identity and access management at scale? What is the primary purpose of identity and access management at scale? Ensuring 100% data security, managing users' identity and access, maximizing system performance, automating data backup. So let's see who also gets this and who is at the same time the fastest. Okay, so time up, and so let's see. Okay, Edmond leads with 483 points. Congratulations, Edmond. Congratulations, Edmond, for today's quiz session. Um, Miss Edmond in the chats. Okay, congratulations, Edmond. It was good having today's session with everybody and having the quiz session also. I think with the quiz session, you should have been able to be, should I say, steadfast on some of the knowledge you've gained and be certain with some of the things that were not so clear also. So that is it for today. And we will need Edmond to share his details to this email address. Congratulations, Edmond. Nice one. So we'll need Edmond to send his full name, LinkedIn profile, Twitter handle, and an image of himself to AWS Cloud Security West Africa at gmail.com. It will be posted on the chat, and image of himself. Please do well to send all of this information, your full name, your LinkedIn profile, your Twitter profile, and a picture of yourself or an image of yourself to AWS Cloud Security West Africa at gmail.com. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being part of this session. It has been an amazing one. I'll say today's session we had a wonderful speaker, a wonderful tutor. Thank you, Abdullateef Ogundipe, and thank you also to the back end manager Saimo Etuk for helping us so much have this session to be this amazing. Thank you, AWS Cloud Security West Africa Group, and also still Samuel Joseph, your moderator for today. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Edmond, for participating and winning today's quiz session. And thank you, everybody, for coming to learn and be with us. So we'll be ending today's session here. It has been a wonderful time.